All right, everybody. Welcome to BO Boys for Thursday, September 5th. Fuck it. It's a raw feed. We're doing it live. I'm Clayton.
Yeah, I'm Pat, and I'm going to do it, Clayton. Here we go. Scott Mendelson, Scott Mendelson, Scott Mendelson. I said
There
it
he
3
is.
times, and now he appears. Our guest today, Scott Mendelson.
Home.
You know what? It's not the same exact kind of entrance that Beetlejuice is going to make when you say his name 3 times. Beetlejuice doesn't always have technical difficulties, but he comes from a simpler time, the 80s. There weren't.
You don't have to tell everybody that my stuff didn't work.
Jeez, Pat.
I like to be honest with our audience, and they love this stuff. They like seeing the real Scott Mendelson, not just the mythical figure that flies above us all and tells us about the box office. They want to know he's a real man who, sometimes he bleeds, sometimes his equipment doesn't work. But Scott Mendelson, you are here. Thank you for coming back to the BO Boys.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So we're going to get to this big movie coming out this weekend. We want to get your final thoughts on the summer. Just, of course, right up top, Scott, how excited are you? We are about a month away from the live show in your own backyard, Los Angeles, the BO Boys with Scott Mendelson, Jeff Bock, and, of course, Nick Turner of Killer Raccoons Part 2. Just how excited are you right now to be getting back up on that stage?
It is interesting. It's the kind of thing that I used to do more of back before I had kids. So it's sort of like blending old world with new world, if that's not too obnoxious.
No. Yeah, and you know what?
Yeah.
Bring the kids, bring the family. They've got to see the man
they don't
who
give a shit.
But they're going to see the man who you were before they came along. The real you, the real Scott Mendelson on stage, tap dancing.
15 pounds lighter.
Yeah, we all will.
Maybe
a month.
A third more hair.
Yeah, it's all going to grow back. It's going to be, that's what the stage does to everyone. So, of course, the live show, get your tickets in the show notes. Scott Mendelson on stage with the BO Boys, October 8th, Yard Theater in LA. We're going to have a lot of big movies to talk about that night. Joker will have just opened. We'll be previewing. I looked it up. We won't waste it here, but one of the biggest opening weekends is coming up right after that show, because that Friday is going to be Terrifier 3, Saturday night, the Trump movie, the Lego Pharrell Williams movie. There was another big one, Clayton. We looked up, we could not believe just how many giant movies were coming out on that Friday after our show.
Was that it? Maybe, yeah.
The Apprentice, which is the Trump movie you're referring to, is guaranteed to sell one ticket for every 10,000 blog posts and social media posts made about it.
Yes.
That is a tweets aren't ticks example, if there ever was one. I mean, I think you're going to hear so much more about that than you'll hear about Joker. And Joker is going to do 1,000 times more. Did we lose Pat? Looks like we lost Pat.
We might have.
Oh my gosh. You know what it was? It was him calling you out for technical difficulties. That's what happened.
I wish I had that kind of power.
That's instant karma, as John Lennon would say.
If I had that kind of power, I probably wouldn't have had technical difficulties in the first place.
Scott, can you give him the business a little bit? Ask him what happened.
I don't care. He's safe and sound. That's all that matters.
I'm back. Clayton said Joker, and then something happened, and then I got kicked off the stream. I don't know. We're not going to.
That sounds the nefarious work of the Penguin.
Yes, there we go. The Joker does not want us to talk about the movies, but we persist. So yeah, huge show, October 8th in LA. Get your tickets. But before we get into this weekend, Beetlejuice, all that, Scott, looking back, summer 2024 started rough in May, but overall, what is your take on where we ended up with this summer? And specifically as it compares to our return to normalcy post-COVID summers. Where do you think this ranks? Where are we at box office health-wise?
Well, I think it's yet more evidence, as we've all seen since Godzilla v. Kong saved theaters for the first time in April of 2021. It's a supply problem, not a demand problem. When you have movies of various sizes and shapes that audiences want to see, they show up. Maybe they don't show up for as many different kinds of movies to the extent that they showed up in the early 2010s, up until the early 2010s. But I mean, year in, year out, we've had, record after record after record. Just this summer, we had the biggest animated film of all time, the biggest comedy of all time. And do you count Deadpool? Do you count Inside Out? Which ones, okay, no, those are cartoons or action movies. Okay, last year at Barbie, okay, the IP, but that film is a comedy. Despicable Me 4, it's a comedy. They aren't deep, dark melodramas about the horrors of midlife crises, although I'm still waiting for Universal to do a live action Gru movie. But, that's a 5-year-old joke. It's probably not fun anymore.
Are you saying that
because with the sequel coming out?
Are you saying that because now that you're returning to the stage, you want to audition perhaps for the role of Gru in the real life Gru movie?
I'm halfway there.
Halfway there, yeah. So you've got some personal reasons.
If you've ever seen a picture of a Louis Leterrier, and I apologize if I butchered that, the man who directed Fast X and the Transporter and a bunch of other action / genre films, he looks exactly like Gru. I mean, he's a handsome guy, so it's not an insult. But in terms of his face and his wardrobe, it's a spitting image. But anyway, I mean, this summer, May was terrible because the movies commercially were terrible. And it drove me nuts watching people who should know better screaming that the sky has fallen, the industry is doomed, there's no going back after Furiosa bombed. Like, I'm sorry, Fury, like it or not, that was a Solo. That was a Lightyear.
Yep.
That's what happens to Solos and Lightyears. And there were some surprises. I was, pleasantly surprised that Universal did what they had to do to sell Twisters as a thing unto itself in North America, but then overseas, Warner Brothers really had nothing to sell, so they couldn't sell it.
On that one,
audiences don't. Go ahead.
Well, on Twisters, where do you think that is as a franchise? Because it bombed overseas. I mean, has it basically just barely cracked 100 million outside the U.S.? But it is such a well-liked, definitely hit movie here. Is that enough where this is a new franchise, or are we waiting another 20 years before we see these Twisters again?
Well, and with the caveat that, me, I'm pretty agnostic in terms of if it's successful on its own terms, I'm not going to whine that it didn't justify a sequel. That being said, I think the issue is it's going to do about 360 worldwide, with 275 of that coming from North. So I guess it could be 375 with about 275 coming from North America. The problem is this one cost 155. You say, okay, breakout sequel, fine, whatever. But clearly, it can only break out so much overseas since nobody particularly showed up. And as far as keeping the budget in check, the things that people liked about this film in North America is the cast, who presumably will want raises if they are going to come back. So it will be challenging to shortchange the budget, even if you want to make it about the same, because who do you not have back? And sure, Universal doesn't want to end up in a Fast and Furious situation where Twisters 8 costs $500 million because you have to pay Katie O'Brien and Sasha Lane $10 million a pop, talent notwithstanding. But at least for this first sequel, and you could be, you just needed Daisy Edgar Jones and Glenn Powell. I was like, no, because then you've got Mummy, the Curse of the Tomb Emperor, or whatever the hell the third one's called. I can never remember the name. It's such a generic title. I still don't remember what it's called. Is it Tomb of the Dragon Emperor?
It's the Curse of the Mummy's Tomb?
Something. I know that's wrong because it's not actually a mummy.
Okay. It might be the return of the mummy's ghost.
Yeah, I'm sure that's probably it. So if it's not that, then that's the asylum version. But so yeah, I think this might just be a one and done. It's like, okay, we did it, people liked it, We made money. We will make money over the long run.
Right.
Let's not press our luck here.
Right. Which is fine. It helped continue making Glenn Powell a star, Daisy Edgar Jones a star. And okay, so you're iffy on, we're all here ready to anoint Glenn Powell as a movie star, but Scott Mendelson has some doubts.
Daisy Edgar Jones is the one that actually has a face on the poster hit to her name, which is, of course, where the Crawdads sing. And you could say, oh, it's just the book. Well, it's like, as we saw with this, it ends with us. The star helps, even if it's just added value element. This example I always like to throw out, which is that prior to 1993, Tom Cruise's biggest opening weekend was 16 million and change for, I don't know if it was Top Gun or it was something else after Top Gun. But his first opening weekend anywhere over 16 was The Firm, which was a Tom Cruise-led adaptation of basically the most popular book in America at that time. So it was a classic star plus IP plus concept all around, mega hit. So, you have Blake Lively in something original like A Simple Favor, and you can maybe get to 100 million worldwide. You have Blake Lively in something like It Ends With Us, and you get to 300 and change, it looks like. So, I mean, that being said, when I say about Glenn Powell, it's not about him. The guy's obviously got star charisma. He's a good actor. He's a smart person in terms of he's been playing the system very well. He's been old enough to be through the trenches. He was basically playing what I like to call Matthew Broderick Godzilla ball, which, if you recall, Matthew Broderick got $5 million for Inspector Gadget before Godzilla opened, knowing full well that he was never going to be more valuable than he was before everyone assumed Godzilla was going to be this massive hit.
Right.
So as you know, Glenn Powell signed on to a bunch of projects before Twisters opened, knowing that if it's a huge hit, well, great, awesome, wonderful. But if it's not, then he's not going to have to give the money back.
Right. They're stuck with him. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think he's an added value element in the right package. I also think it's a good lesson to that, like, if you want old school movie stars, you need to make more old school movies like Anyone But You, which legged out after a $6 million opening weekend. And because, in the proverbial olden days, 20 was a big budget, 10 was a great opening, and anything over 100 million, you were drowning in money. And that was the star system as we knew it.
Right. So looking at the summer, who would you say are your top couple of winners of the summer, whether they are actors or is there a studio? I mean, I guess Disney made the most, but I wouldn't say, Disney's expected to, so it's kind of who cares when
again, I don't want to get too serious about this, but make your jokes about coconut trees or you didn't build that or stolen valor if you want to be really obnoxious. But 3 out of 4 of their biggies were from Fox. And not only that, even the Marvel movie was 99.9% predicated on Fox properties.
Yes.
There's one scene set in the MCU, for God's sakes. That's barely a Marvel movie.
Yes. People went because
I do not remotely believe that in an alternate timeline where Fox remains independent, or it ends up with Comcast, because that was on the table too, if you recall, where they put out Wolverine meets Deadpool, and it doesn't make about the same amount of money.
So Fox, the studio, or now 20th Century Studio, kind of won the summer. Alien, Deadpool, and Planet of the Apes, of course. Yeah.
I mean, if you want to, if they were independent, I know they're not, so forgive me, they would have won market share just from those 3 movies, basically.
Wow.
And then, Universal would have been second with about $1 billion and change. This is domestic, by the way, just because it's easier to look up.
Right. Well, we've had some debate on this show about, I've been pushing, do we just go full international? People have pushed back. Listeners have pushed back. They want to keep domestic. So, that's.
Yeah. Is it a debate when one guy has a really terrible idea and everybody shouts it down? Is that what a debate is in where you're from or where you'd like to live, I guess?
Obviously, when I'm doing the writing, I try to focus on both, but it usually matches up. There are some exceptions. Although this summer, that was another weird thing that I The Fall Guy did okay in North America. If did okay in North America. Twisters did great in North America. But these films are overall either coin tosses or outright theatrical whiffs. because they did not do well overseas.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a moral judgment. They have no, people outside of America have no obligation to show up for Hollywood stuff, but it does sort of skew the conversation of boo-hoo, what's wrong with American moviegoers? And I would say we kind of showed up, relatively speaking.
Do you think they have no moral obligation, or should we actually start making the case that people outside of the U.S. do have a moral obligation to see The Fall Guy, to see these big Hollywood movies? Because if they stop going, then that's a problem for the world economy. So I think there might be a little bit of an obligation. Algeria, these places, go see The Fall Guy, or else God knows what's going to happen to your local currency.
And also, I do think there's an element of expanding PLFs into these places, because what is their 40X situation? Because when you see the bump that Twisters will get when the 40X, when it's back in 40X on these weekends, when people are getting gleeked on, when they're getting blown all over the theater, that is an experience that might not be overseas. And I think that is, we're neglecting so many places when we don't build 40Xs in these other countries. And I mean, I think Twisters, a lot of these countries don't ever get to experience a tornado. And that's something that's really sad. They should be able to experience a tornado. Yeah, poor them. Exactly, Scott. That's my thought. They should be able to experience it. And why not experience it with two beautiful people as their guides? I mean, I think that is something that we really need to look into when we look at the domestic versus international for Twisters.
Right.
I'm not sure. I think most of those places at least have the kind of museum exhibits where you put $3 in and you go into a booth and you get rattled and rolled for a few minutes. But I get your point, broadly speaking.
Yeah, you're not rattling and rolling with Daisy Edgar Jones, which is what's happening in the United States. Yeah, and you go to Greece. Listen, I'm sure a beautiful place, but those buildings are all falling down, and they don't have the IMAXs that they need. And
the Colosseums are sturdy enough for Godzilla to take a nap there, so.
Why not sturdy enough for Godzilla to be shown there on the biggest screen ever made? Yeah, so I think that's an issue. But I actually do want to bring up, staying on Twisters, because the other day, Clayton and I, on going over the opening weekend of Reagan, we did theorize that perhaps some of the people who went to see Reagan bought tickets to see Twisters and then went to go see Reagan because they don't want to be tracked. It's an audience that doesn't want to be tracked online. And when we saw that big Twisters opening weekend bump, or the bump that it had this past weekend where it went up so much the weekend before, that was our theory. Though, Scott, are you here to dispel or to agree with that theory?
I mean, on its face, I would say that's absurd, but it's not entirely absurd. Again, I don't think it made the difference between an $8-9 million opening and 15. But if you tell me that a few people did that, I would absolutely believe you.
Yeah. Okay, that's all we need.
And I would say personally, I mean, not Reagan doing $9 million over Labor Day weekend from a completely new distributor, Showbiz Direct, is pretty great. I mean, to put that in perspective, 16 years ago, Oliver Stone's W, with a lot more free attention and publicity and buzz and all that jazz from Lionsgate, opened to $10 million in its 3-day weekend. Again, inflation notwithstanding.
Right.
But so for this to play on the same ballpark, I would consider that a win.
Right. Because W came out when he was still the president, whereas Reagan came out and he's been dead for 20 years almost. So.
And, to the extent that it makes a difference, W was a film that got decent reviews, but not superlative reviews. Means even people that were on its side politically, it wasn't, they didn't all love it. If I'm speaking in overly broad terms, I apologize. But from what I gather, people that voted for Reagan in 80 and 84 and or would have done so again seem to like what they got.
Yes. Yes. Them seeming to like what they got. Scott, have you seen these day-by-days, these daily numbers for Reagan? Is this true that Reagan won the day on Tuesday? I've seen some.
I'll be honest, I don't know. I haven't checked.
I
Wouldn't
did see
surprise
that
me,
go
'cause
out.
it's
I did go.
no. On Tuesday it was close though. Wolverine and
Mhm.
Deadpool did 1.28 and Reagan did 1.272.
Okay.
That's not bad.
Yeah, so that's what I'm seeing. Of course, Jeff Bock, who's going to be on stage with us in LA, he put that out today that basically they were neck and neck in the dailies on Tuesday. So
Thank
I mean,
you.
do you see?
Pick a Tuesday.
Yeah. So what do you attribute that to? Is Reagan gaining momentum? Is this a movie that could go up a few slots this weekend?
Well, with the obvious caveat that rank is irrelevant as long as the numbers are good. I mean, that it did 9 million over its 4-day weekend and seemed to be well liked, and it's not like there's anything else like it in the marketplace. Yeah, I could see it legging out to 25 domestic, which again, on a 25 budget, with all the variables and caveats and disclaimers that is the modern theatrical marketplace, that's pretty good. I would consider that an absolute win.
And then you look at
again,
you look at the downstream also. Like if they made their money at the theater, made their money back, and then this thing goes on Streamo for Thanksgiving, for the holiday season, for families to gather around the television and watch. I mean, that's something that this company can be pretty proud of pulling off.
I mean, you might. There's also the kind of title that over indexes in relation to gross physical DVD sales. Because you do have the demographics that still buy DVDs at an impulse purchase while they're at Target or Walmart or whatever.
I think they should sell VHSs. I think that Showbiz Direct.
Nobody has a VHS. Even I don't even know if I even have a VHS player.
We don't, but we're talking about the people who this past Tuesday rushed to the discount screenings of Reagan, of the Ronald Reagan movie. If there is money to be made on VHSs in this world, this is the audience to make that money off of. I'm not saying print 4 million. I'm saying 1,000 VHSs. I think you will sell all but one of them. I think you'll be left maybe holding one. And then if you need more,
it's funny you say that.
Copies of.
That's not the craziest idea I've ever heard.
It's not.
But the only other titles that tend to even remotely justify a goofy VHS sale are the kind of films that Reagan and friends tried to get banned in the 1980s.
Yes.
Video nasties. Video nasties. I think that this is how you sell Horizon Part 2, Chapter 2. It's a double, one of those. Yeah, it's the Reagan and Horizon 2 double pack.
Yeah.
And this is how you sell that. I mean, Costner should be on the phone being like, how do I get into this Reagan business here?
Yeah.
If that's what it takes, then fine. Because I genuinely liked Horizon. The nicest thing I could say about it is after they finished screening part 1 at the Warner lot, if they had said, hey, go to the bathroom and come back in 10 minutes, we're going to start part 2, I'd have been like, yeah.
Yeah. I'm honestly excited to see that.
I'm not surprised that it dive bombed. I am a little surprised that, and again, this is all conjecture, speculation, gossip, that Costner seems somewhat surprised that he's not rolling in money from this. And because my feeling was always that he's got to know what he's getting into. He's not getting any younger. He knows the theatrical ecosystem looks like, but he wanted to do this, and his money that he can afford to lose, so why not go for it?
Mm-hmm.
If he did come at this with the notion that everyone that watches Yellowstone on UPN network or whatever your favorite streaming platform is going to show up in theaters to see Horizon Part 1, then I wish he had, the joke I've been making is I wish he had called me first. Because, 21 years ago, Open Range, a freaking great movie, by the way, made a whopping 60 million worldwide on a 22 budget. And that was 21 years ago.
Right.
That was a 2-hour and change action-packed Western thriller of a movie. This is closer to Wyatt Earp, where it's a 3-hour drama with periodic action scenes. And again, if he knew what he was getting into, fine, whatever. But if he didn't, then I question his judgment.
So it just, and we're not the Streamo boys, huh? And you're not the Streamo legend, Scott Mendelson. You're the box office legend. But it did just drop on HBO Max, I think, within the last few days, or at least I've only noticed it there in the last few days. Is this basically the most important period for this movie, where it has to go crazy on Streamo so that the demand is there to get the second part either in the movie theaters or on streaming? Like is this the critical period where people have to somehow get really into discovering Horizon?
I think the critical period is, if and when it ends up on Netflix and does viewership there, because then Zaslav and friends can demand more money to license the second one.
So what are you hearing in terms of, what are you hearing, Scott, in terms of when or if we'll ever see this? Because the second one is made. There is a Horizon 2 that is completed. So will we see it? This is not going to be a Jerry Lewis Holocaust Clown movie situation where it's in the vault. Like, we will see this film.
Coyote versus Zach.
Not a Coyote versus Zach, yeah.
Different situation, for better or worse. No,
but they all end up in the same place
at some point, but I don't know when. I mean, I would say put it out in the first 2 weeks of November when there's just not much else going on, movie-wise.
Okay.
And then if the election does turn into a giant clusterfuck of, that is an audience that's going to want, stereotypically, that is going to play to certain audiences that are going to want to show up to see a Kevin Costner Western no matter who wins.
And
I think that's what Sony's thinking with the Tom Hanks movie, the Zemeckis picture, that they slotted, I think, for November 15th. Am I wrong? Or did they?
It might be the first. It might be the week before. Okay, we don't get political on the show, but I do want to throw this out. Everyone talks about third-party spoilers. Is there a potential bigger third-party spoiler than Horizon Chapter 2 dropping on a special Tuesday election day opening day? Does that throw the entire election into disarray if they drop it on the first Tuesday in November? That's your spoiler.
I think it could possibly impact dozens of votes.
Okay. So, but listen, dozens of votes in one state could be all that
places that were probably leaning pretty red anyway.
Okay, so I mean, listen, listen. If Costner wants to get the most bang for his buck and get a lot of buzz, say, hey, this is coming out 8 a.m. on election day morning, and you see what happens. So I think I'm in favor of full stunt release for Horizon Chapter 2. Just go nuts with it. So yeah, any other big stories from the summer that caught you by surprise? I mean, we touched a little bit on it with us, but you predicted that. You were months and months before.
I thought it was going to be big. I didn't think it was going to be supernova.
Yeah.
And it was. I was thinking Crawdads, not 50 Shades.
Okay.
Because I mean, adjusted for inflation, is going to make more money than any Nicholas Sparks adaptation in North America or worldwide.
Wow.
And with the important caveat that we're not counting disaster peril or action scenes or music or fantasy, it's basically going to be the biggest grossing straight up romantic drama worldwide outside of the 50 Shades trilogy.
Wow.
So forget sequels, but what do you think that leads to more of? Do you think Hollywood will look at this movie and say, okay, this was a huge hit. We need more Blake Lively movies or more romantic movies or more Justin Baldoni directed pictures? Like, what do you think is the lesson?
They might be avoiding that one if everything, conjecture. The phrase milkshake duck comes to mind, and that's all I'm going to say about that. They'll protest too much. Anyway, I think the lesson is that Hollywood spent the entire 2010s not making movies like this for no particular reason, because it's not like they stopped making money. I mean, yeah, Fault of Your Stars was a lightning in a bottle mega smash, but even a few months later, If I Stay with Chloe Moretz made like $90 million worldwide on a 15 budget. These films make money when they were making them, and then they just stopped. And whether it's institutional sexism or whether it was a generation of actresses being brought up to think, partially because of institutional sexism, that these films weren't like cool or hip or what they should be doing with their career. I do think that's a part of it. It's like, you have a generation that's been taught that it's better to be, how do I put this gently? It's better to be the drugged out junkie in for Ben Affleck's The Town than the star in your own romantic / non-romantic melodrama.
Yep, you put it gently.
It's better to be Tom Hardy's girlfriend in some random mob drama than to be the star in your own film. And that, I believe that attitude was in play in the 2010s.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, when you look at the rom-com sort of, there was a backlash against stars being stuck in rom-coms. Like when you look at Kate Hudson, she was lambasted for, is this all she can do? What do you mean? Make money on romantic comedies? McConaughey, part of his reconnaissance was, I'm stepping away from these movies. It's like, those movies made money. Like those movies were hits, and it became this thing where it's like toxic. And now I think Hollywood's going to all of a sudden be like, oh, wait, what did we do here? Did we just throw dirt on this genre that could have continued to make money for us?
And I don't know if he intended to poison the culture, but I was always very upset with McConaughey with how he went about that. Basically saying that, I'm tired of doing these fun, girly movies that make people feel happy things. I'm going to prove I'm a serious actor by doing dark, gritty dramas where women get raped instead. And, the joke I'd always make is that Matthew McConaughey can do Joker, but Joaquin Phoenix can't do How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Yes.
So true.
Yes.
But
he was, to be fair, he was supposed to do it, but he did drop out of that movie 2 days before they started shooting.
Yeah.
So, McConaughey stepped in on that one.
He has such a reputation for that. You might be telling the truth.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just that new movie. But anyway, and the other thing is, I think that Hollywood, they were pivoting toward all tentpoles all the time. And I think they used the cultural alibi of putting women in big budget action fantasy IP films as sort of a justification for why they didn't have to make anything else. So it's like, we're giving women Force Awakens and Wonder Woman, so we don't have to make any more, Fault in Your Stars or Trainwreck or whatever.
Right.
And unfortunately, once the bottom fell out on the fantasy action franchise thing, especially with Marvel and DC, it's like, there's nothing left because you took everything away.
Right. Well, and we're going to talk about her with the new movie coming out this weekend. Jenna Ortega had a great quote this week where she said, I don't want to play female James Bond. I don't want to play Jamie Bond. She wants.
Well, did you know what that was in response to? If you're a publicist and you're a journalist and you're asking Jenna Ortega anything you want, and you're going to ask her if she wants to do a gender swapped Edward Scissorhands, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Right. She wants her own franchises that she punches up the script, rewrites, of course.
Yeah.
Well, it worked.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
I mean, people like to give her grief for that, but obviously everyone loved Wednesday, so proof is in the pudding.
So, and when you talk about these romantic dramas, melodramas, there is this whole new group of stars that we're trying to make here. You're Zendaya, you're Sydney Sweeney, Jenna Ortega. That's
Zendaya.
The type of movie. Zendaya.
And Timothy Chalamet and the young man from The Bear. His name escapes me.
Yes,
they call them the Rat Boys, but I think a big part of the appeal is that they look like relatively handsome young men that might have sex.
Yeah. Yes. And now it's time to let them, because they couldn't do it with the capes on. And these are the type of movies that are going to make these actors stars. So I mean, that could be the legacy of his It Ends With Us. Is where is Sydney Sweeney's It Ends With Us? Where is Zendaya's It Ends With Us? That's the type of movie they need. Or
at least you get these movies like, again, I like The Fall Guy. I'm glad it existed. I'm glad Universal rolled the dice and releasing it in early May. And again, I wasn't, oh no, it didn't open as well as a Marvel movie. I was like, oh shit, it didn't open as well as Bullet Train in the Lost City.
Right.
I digress. But do I think there's also a $90 million version of that movie that stars maybe Timothy Chalamet and Jenna Ortega that maybe makes, is at least almost profitable? because you have the kids that don't care about 40-something-year-old Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling that are enticed to see people they know and like in a film that's significantly cheaper because you're not paying those salaries.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's total speculation.
Yeah. And you open that movie on like August 2nd instead of first movie in May.
Oh, fuck it. I say go for May anyway. Because if it only costs 90, then 28's a good opening.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's do it. Next summer, full on remake The Fall Guy. This one didn't happen.
Thunderbolts can go to hell.
Yeah. So we talked about her. We said her name. I'll say it again. Jenna Ortega.
Jenna.
This weekend, we got Beetlejuice opening. And Clayton knows I've been riding high on this movie for months and months. I mean, I've been saying it opening weekend for probably 6 months before the summer. Scott,
January 1st. Sorry, January 2nd.
I would say
because I did my annual. I predict the biggest movie of each month, which I am not batting 100. That's all I'll say about that. Justice for Lisa Frankenstein.
But yeah, walk us
looking at the calendar, but no, this is like it. This is a multi-generational nostalgia earthquake of an event.
Yes,
because you have like a half a dozen different variables that are all coalescing, that all have their own fan bases that discovered this property at various points in time over the last under 40 years. You have people that discovered the movie at some point between 1988 and today. You have some people that discovered the cartoon, pretty much the same thing. The musical that's been running for about a decade, give or take. And then you have Tim Burton as, basically baby's first film school or baby's first on tour. And, whether for people my age, he was film school in a box, or, for people that discovered him through, Edward Scissorhands and maybe Sleepy Hollow, or maybe Alice in Wonderland, or maybe Sweeney Todd, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then just 2 years ago, you have a whole bunch of people that discovered him from Wednesday.
Yes.
And that's viable. And then you have Winona Ryder that, if you're my age, basically every person my age, no matter your sexual orientation, was crushing on her. And then, still is, let's be honest. And then you have people that discovered her just from Stranger Things, and that's fine. That's
like Pat's generation. Me and you, Scott, were Gen X, and Pat's generation, Stranger Things. That's where who is this woman?
Also Gen X, also crushing on Winona since Reality Bites, and of course.
And
it's
I don't know. Even when I was a kid, I thought
storm.
Ben Stiller was the better match, but whatever.
I mean, it's re-release that movie next weekend. Capitalize on the Winona songs. I mean that is the thing. This movie has,
and then the silver bullet. You have Jenna Ortega, who is an added value element in an already viable franchise, which is exactly what this is.
Yeah, and you got Catherine O'Hara, who herself is probably at the height of her fame right now, coming off of Schitt's Creek, the Emmys. Like, she is someone who is a bigger star coming into this movie, I think, than obviously she was coming off SCTV and everything in the 80s, but I think she's a bigger star, and she's got the forever Home Alone fandom that's going to specifically want to see a movie like this. I think you've got pretty much 4 to 5 big stars coming together for this movie. And there's the thought that there's no one coming into this who seems sad, in the way that, and I'm sure he's living a great life and he's selling a lot of vodka, but there's no Dan Aykroyd coming in here to bring down the vibe in the way that a lot of these reboots and sequels, there's always someone in here who makes you feel bad on screen. And I don't think we're getting that with this Beetlejuice movie.
I mean, I'm more sensitive to that than I think most of my peers. I got a little of that from Winona Ryder's character, but I saw it yesterday. It's fine. I have my nitpicks with it, but whatever. I think it does the job. I also will say, Catherine O'Hara is in it quite a bit, so that's going to help. And I think, to their credit, Beetlejuice is in it more than the first one, but not aggressively so.
That's good. That's good.
I remember that he is a supporting character. But whatever. This is not a Beetlejuice review show. But yeah, I mean, the sky is really the limit.
Right.
I mean, they're at a point now where it can open with it chapter 2 Joker numbers and they'll be on the defensive. That's how hyperbolic even the tracking has gotten. And I know tracking is not an exact science, blah, blah, but there is nothing negative that's there to pull this film down. Even the reviews are decent. You know, they're not superlative, but you know, I mean, again, we've seen plenty of legacy sequels that got torn apart, not just by me, because I tend to be kind of a crank about these things, but by regular critics. But this is not, you know, the reviews are decent. The property is well known. It's an all quadrant picture you can take your kids to, so that's not an issue. You know, you don't need to get a babysitter to indulge in that nostalgia. You know, that's sort of the difference between, you know, Blade Runner 2049 and Tron Legacy, among other things. Now, Tron Ares, that's a different problem, but I digress. It's like, what if we made a sequel to Tron Legacy, which apparently people like now, but brought back none of the people involved in it? Ha ha ha! Pacific Uprising.
Yes.
So we haven't really talked about Keaton, and you know, I think he's in the same boat where Michael Keaton comes into this on an upswing in the sense that he's now become an elder statesman, forever star. And again, going back to the Ghostbusters comparison, I feel like he just looks like he's more put together to be on the big screen than your ex-Ghostbusters. Other than, of course, Ernie Hudson looks like he should be the star of an action movie right now. But, you know, your Dan Aykroyds and your Bill Murrays, Michael Keaton, I think, is coming in a much better place. Definitely more than Bill Murray. So, like, Michael Keaton, again, feels like he's still got it in a way that, I mean, honestly, I've made this comparison. He's coming in this like Tom Cruise in Maverick. You know, I think there is just, he still looks the part. He's still got the juice and people still feel good about him.
I mean, I remember seeing The Protege after he had been, you know, recast as Batman and thinking, my God, they're going to have to age him up for this.
Yeah.
Because he was like 58 years old and he's still like, you know, maybe 10 years older since, you know, Batman Returns or whatever.
Yeah, he keeps himself slim, which is positive. You know, his sort of failures that he's had recently have been at such a low level that I mean, other than The Flash, which he doesn't get blamed for, I think, you know, some of the movies, like you mentioned, The Protege,
got a Teflon ability at this point. Even stuff like, because if you heard what he said, and again, I don't criticize this statement, I understand it. But if anyone else had been asked about Batgirl and basically said, hey, I don't care, my check's still cleared, who gives a shit? They would have gotten torn to shreds.
Absolutely. Yep.
And again, he's not wrong. He's a working actor. He did the job. He got the money. What happens after that is irrelevant.
Exactly. And I think that's a big statement in the tide turning against superhero movies, just as the omnipresent only thing. He's reminding everybody that it's just another gig. This is what actors do. Sometimes they play superheroes, and sometimes they play lawyers, and sometimes they play assassins, and sometimes they play undead ghouls. That is the actor's life. That is the star's life. And I think it's a refreshing thing as opposed to a negative thing, because that's going to help the next Chris Hemsworth, because we're no longer scared, to not be so like clutching Thor with a death grip, because they'll be more chill about it and say, it's just one character that I play, you know, whether people will embrace them. That's another question.
Sydney Sweeney is a very attractive young woman, but she was never hotter than when she was asked about Men in Web and basically said, it was a job. It got me in with Sony. It allowed me to help finance anyone but you. No regrets. It's, you know, it's the job. It's like, God, that's refreshing. Because I mean, after all these years to where you're getting these people talking about fucking Mortal Kombat as respecting the lore and honoring these characters, it's like, no, stop that.
I love Sub-Zero.
I really enjoy the games.
Yeah.
Like
Sub-Zero was, I would play him all the time, and I would think, man, he really resonates with me. It's like, no, he doesn't, and it's fine if he doesn't.
I like the part where I punched the guy, he fell off the bridge and landed on the spikes. End of story.
That's cool. Yeah.
And so that you know,
it's great that Michael Keaton could feel safe to say I did a superhero movie for a paycheck. And yeah, he is just in that spot where the public loves him. The public loves, like you said, Winona Ryder from Stranger Things. Jenna Ortega is as big of a young star as we've got right now. Catherine O'Hara, coming off of Schitt's Creek, is riding a high. Burton, let's talk Tim Burton again, because he's had a rough last decade, and at least in terms of hits, pretty much since the first Alice in Wonderland, I would say he hasn't had a full-on hit movie, right? It's maybe been then, and that was $1 billion baby, so he did have that.
Yeah,
but
that was his, and that was partially, he was an added value element in that equation,
right?
Just like he's an added value element here. We could debate whether he was in Dumbo, and that was a classic example of, ironically, just because they showed up for Batman doesn't mean they're going to show up for the Shadow. But, and obviously it's Netflix, which is a whole different can of worms, but even by the bullshit nothing matters metrics of streaming, Wednesday was a pretty big hit.
Right.
That was one that genuinely, that broke into the popular culture beyond just, it's an Addams Family thing with Young Wednesday or whatever. It was its own, it created its own fan base. So it's, there are people that have never even heard of the property that love Wednesday, love that universe because of that show.
Right.
Emma Myers is being treated as a star because of it, for better or worse. I think she's a lovely actress, blah, blah, blah. But, that is a rising, she got lifted on that particular boat.
And Beetlejuice is a movie that there's a few people who you could not have done the sequel without. Obviously, you couldn't do it without Keaton. I think Winona Ryder would have been tough to sell it totally without her, but you couldn't have done it without Burton. I do think this is one where if the director didn't return, the fan base would have rejected it.
It's, again, who knows what the movie looks like if Spielberg directs it, but I do think a huge problem is when you have, and I said this right when it was announced, not to toot my own horn because I'm not always right, but as soon as Spielberg left Indiana Jones, as much as I like Jay Mangold as a filmmaker, okay, Spielberg's not involved, Lucas is not involved. This is now The Mummy 3.
Yes.
Where it's sort of in name only with just the leading man back.
Yes.
And to my shock, I was right. It made less than The Mummy, Curse of the Tomb Dragon, whatever the fuck.
Yep. Curse of the Revenge of the Mummy's Ghost, of course, was the name. And
I mean, obviously, I understand why Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis were not coming back. Gina Davis didn't necessarily want to do all the de-aging, whatever. And frankly, I'm not sure Alec Baldwin could possibly play that character again. Just because even in 1988, it was weird seeing him play a character who was so nice and decent and he was awesome. Even then, it was sort of a an against type turn for him.
Right.
But that being said, I do think the film lacks that grounding element that by virtue of them being the protagonist the first time around, it's a very different feeling picture, for better or worse. But commercially, you don't need them. I think the movie is poorer for their absence, but what can you do?
One other cast member didn't reach, or maybe I haven't seen the film, so we don't get a Jeffrey Jones appearance in this.
I mean, no spoilers, but the character is absolutely there, and the choices they make to deal with that are frankly pretty clever.
Wow. Okay. So I take that means that he's in 90% of the movie. So
absolutely. He's actually the lead. Spoiler.
Very, very interesting.
Jenna Ortega gets killed off in the first act. Winona Ryder is in a coma for it's mostly the Jeffrey Jones story.
It's mostly Jeffrey Jones and Beetlejuice hanging out. Wow, that's it. I mean, now I get why it's opening to possibly
exactly
25 million. Yeah. Okay, so then huge comeback for Jeffrey Jones, possibly. That's huge news we're breaking right now.
Yeah, last seen in Who's Your Caddy in 2007. So
never happened to him.
And if you're watching us on YouTube right now on the BO Boys YouTube channel, the way Scott is positioning his head, I do expect a thought bubble to come out of his head and to see a recap of the last 15 years of Jeffrey Jones's life to start happening. So Watch for that on the
And
YouTube
honestly,
channel.
without being annoying about it, the way that is handled is it works, artistically, and B, it's almost a nice way to sort of like, okay, we're not going to pretend this guy was not a regular player in my cast, that he wasn't a friend of mine, that this character wasn't fun the first time around. We don't have to rub their faces in what he did and why he's not back, but we're not going to scrub him from the face of the earth just so we feel better.
Right. Okay. All right. Now I'm listen. I was opening day seeing this anyway, but now I'm even more excited. And Otho is the actor who played Otho is passed on, I think, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I, again, no spoiler. I hope they do a nod, because Otho is maybe my second favorite character from Beetlejuice, after, of course, Beetlejuice. So a lot going for this
but
movie.
I might be incorrect.
So a lot going for this. This feels like, this is obviously a summer level movie opening in early September, and we've had Warner Brothers slot with the 2 It movies open early September. They've had Nun movies that have done well, but are we getting ourselves set up for an abnormally big fall when you have something this big opening? Okay.
Well, and my navel gazing post of the day, read it or not at your convenience, that's fine, is basically talking about Warner Brothers has a very long history going back 30 years of dropping big deal movies and release dates that at the time seemed less than ideal, going back to opening summer way before Memorial Day, first in 92 with Lethal Weapon 3, and then in 96 with Twister. They dropped Demolition Man in early October 2013, but they had dropped Under Siege, which actually opened bigger. I didn't realize that until I did the research. In October 1992, these are both what you could think of, summer movies back then.
Yep.
And then they dropped, 20 years later, they dropped Gravity in early October, and that becomes a tentpole launching pad. And they dropped the Lego Movie the weekend before President's Day weekend, which was an unusual choice. Remember in 1999, The Matrix, that's why we have Easter tentpoles. Or you have that, early, very, very late March / early April weekend that, whether it's Easter or not, has been a home for Super Mario Brothers, Batman v Superman, The Hunger Games, next year's Minecraft. That's what inspired me to write it. Which that's a great fucking trailer.
Well, let's talk about that. That is actually, we'll get off of Beetlejuice and just get into a couple of, let's get into Minecraft, because we did have one of our listeners, Danny, wrote in. He's like, you got to talk about this Minecraft movie. His take is that you look at this trailer, it could go one way, and this is Borderlands, or it could go another way, and this is the Barbie movie or Super Mario Brothers.
Jumanji is my frame of reference.
Yes, Jumanji. The
now,
Rock.
Again,
Jumanji
to be fair, Jumanji took a property that was, let's bring game shit into the real world, and reversed it and said, let's put real people into the game, a video game. So it really was giving them the exact opposite of what that property was supposed to do. This is more, okay, it's a Minecraft movie, and here's how we're going to do it. That being said, it looks incredibly colorful. It looks, as someone that has, my kids play Minecraft, but I would fail any and all tests about anything related to lore or mythology or the rules. I laughed. I chuckled. I thought it's a fun way to play. It looks source accurate without being obnoxious about it.
Okay.
And you got Jack Black in that kind of movie, which is gold. Playing that kind of character.
Here's my fear, Scott, and I think this is recency bias, because Borderlands,
absolute like a talking robot
tank job. But just give me a second here, because what I'm seeing with this trailer is, you mentioned Jumanji. This trailer is aping a popular hit movie that is a similar sort of tone, which is Jumanji, which is the same thing Borderlands did with Guardians of the Galaxy. You've got Momoa in this trailer playing Dime Store Rock. Okay. You have Jack Black, who, I love Jack Black. Jack Black is a star. He's there's a generation under us, Pat's generation, who loves this guy. You know, we know him from Mr. Show, obviously, as Gen Xers.
I also know him from Mr. Show.
That knows him from the house with the clock in it or whatever that crap was, but in Goosebumps. But he is sort
of course his
like,
iconic turn in Yo Gabba Gabba.
Yep. See, Pat watched that as a wee lad. Now,
no, I watched 70 Sesame Street.
I think that there's a little bit of a fear now when I saw him, because I was like, yes, Mario was huge. He was a voice in Mario. That's a huge video game movie. Borderlands just seems to have tainted me with fear now, because I'm seeing this trailer. And of course, you know, you're reading the comments and all the comments are, I can't believe they didn't lock the comments. I can't believe they didn't lock the comments, because people are going off on this movie. So I'm curious, you love the trailer. Do you have any qualms now or fears now that Jack Black might be a bad element to have in this movie so close to Borderlands, at least this trailer dropping? Because obviously when Minecraft comes out, Borderlands will be so far in the rear view.
How many of the people that showed up with bells on for Kung Fu Panda 4 or Super Mario Brothers are even aware he was in Borderlands?
It's true.
And again, I don't think it's going to automatically do Jumanji numbers. That movie did $962 million. This could do a third of that, and they'd be, well, okay, it's probably pretty expensive. This could do half of that, and they'd be thrilled. And it's also, you know, it's opening in the same, you know, Mario slot, and there's nothing else for kids, give or take the Michael Jackson biopic, which is going to be a 2,400-pound megaton bomb, but in a good way. But I digress.
It's for kids, so we'll see. It could be competition.
Yes. But other than that, I mean, even Thunderbolts. I mean, okay, sure, it's a Marvel kickoff movie, but for the first time in forever, we're not sure, because it's like,
is that
Suicide Squad?
I was going to say, is that, I mean, if the Suicide Squad bombed, and I know it was a different time, COVID times, but
well, again, that would have,
Is this Miss? I mean, are we going under Miss Marvel for the opening of Thunderbolts? I think so, right?
No, because you'll actually have people promoting it.
Okay, you mean
and there'll be awareness created?
Do you think Miss Flo is gonna promote this?
Yeah, I mean, I think she has to under penalty of death.
Yeah, that's the key.
It is Disney.
She's contracted to promote.
They'll kill her if she doesn't. If she does the whole, you know, I'm going to Venice with a, you know, showing up late with a frappuccino in my hand. I don't think Bob Iger's going to let him get away with that.
Right.
Well,
although it was great publicity for "Don't Worry, Darling."
The red dot will be on her forehead for sure, so we know this.
So, the Minecraft movie. I'm not sure where I stand on this right now, because again, I don't know anything about Minecraft. Jason Momoa, though, as the lead. I mean, if this is Jumanji, then Jason Momoa is your Rock in this movie. And it does seem like he is doing the style of acting he did in that last Fast and the Furious movie. He's going.
I hope so.
Okay. It does seem that way from this trailer, that he's going for it. He's, you know, he is full on just putting on a show. And I don't know, maybe that's what the character calls for in these movies. I don't know if that's what people expect out of it, but it could go either way. It's in the Mario slot. I don't think there's any chance it's Borderlands. I mean, Borderlands is just such a
that was delayed by like 2 years. They had reshoots that were, you know, with a different director. And obviously the interest wasn't there, because if the interest had been there, it still would have opened a little bit. Minecraft is still a present tense. Kids love this property.
Yeah.
And it's like 20 years old already, because time is a thief, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, my kids grew up on Minecraft, despite me, I didn't, but I was aware of what it was. And again, it's like Mario in that it becomes popular with every new generation of kids without necessarily requiring nostalgia, whether it's Mario or Ninja Turtles or those are the, Batman and Spider-Man.
Right.
And again, there's a lot of wiggle room. When I say Jumanji, again, there's never been a live action video game movie that's topped even the $450 million of Warcraft and Detective Pikachu. So, it can be big without being a world killer.
Right.
But I think in terms of the trailer took me from, they're making a Minecraft movie to, this looks cute. I look forward to seeing this.
All right.
And as an agnostic, that matters. And knowing that my 13-year-old son, who cares more about the stuff than either of my other two children, was like, that looks fun. I mean, he wasn't going crazy for it like Sonic 3, but
right.
His big three franchises are Sonic, the Monsterverse, and Jurassic.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, he loves kaiju, which is funny because that's like one of the franchises that there are other people that know more about that than I do. So I'm constantly, he's asking me questions like a friend of mine, Aaron Newworth, who's also does stuff like this, but he's a kaiju nut. It's like, call Aaron, ask him, he'll tell you. He'll love to talk about this crap.
That's a great.
I'm still wondering where the fuck Yamura is.
That's a great dad who, even if he doesn't know something, he knows experts in everything that he could pass his kids along to. Mm-hmm. So,
one of my favorite movie-going experiences of last year was we did not go to a theater because he didn't want to, and I'm not going to force him to, but we watched Five Nights at Freddy's at home on opening night on Peacock. And I thought, this is a terrible, terrible, incredibly boring movie. Probably one of the worst movies of the year, but he liked it. And that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I still remember dragging my dad to Ninja Turtles 2 Secret of the Ooze and feeling terrible afterwards. Because even at that age, I knew it wasn't anywhere near as good as the first one. Mm-hmm. Or dragging my dad to the Karate Kid 3. And even when I was dying, it's like, this is terrible, but I'm being tongue in cheek, but hopefully he still loves me anyway.
Right.
But and the shoe was completely gone on the other foot, where like the adults are dragging kids to Indiana Jones and saying, like this. This is what you're supposed to like. And we wonder why kids aren't going to the movies.
Yeah.
That's such a great point. That is such a great point, Scott.
And that was a sad time in America, that last Indiana Jones movie coming out, and all the adults dragging sad kids to come see that with them.
That's the Ghostbusters franchise. We talked about this when
the Ghostbusters, and I agree with you. But the reason I like those, I think they work with. I like the new cast, and I saw the Afterlife at a press screening, and it's like, okay, I have serious issues with the third act of this movie, but I think my kids who don't barely know anything about Ghostbusters are going to enjoy it just as a Stranger Things-ish fantasy of its own accord. And they did, so I'm more tolerant of it because of that.
I mean, we're about to have...
That franchise made fans out of McKenna Grace and Paul Rudd and all the newbies.
Mm-hmm. When you're comparing these 80s supernatural comedy franchises, Beetlejuice's sequel is about to open up to possibly the combined number of the last 3 Ghostbusters sequels. It's going to be around that. Those opened up to what, 40-ish million a piece?
Good. 45.
Yeah.
So 135? Did I do that right? No.
Possible. Right. Yeah, it would be 135 and
125.
Yeah.
Wait.
So that's how big Beetlejuice is right now. It could be bigger than the last 3 Ghostbusters sequels combined. Just looking ahead, just 2 more movies for this month. Oh, actually, go for it. Make your Beetlejuice Ghostbusters point there.
Oh no, I when you look at what did well this summer, I think the big pattern is 2010s nostalgia. That the pop culture nostalgia for the people that were kids 10 years ago. Deadpool, Despicable Me, Inside Out. To a certain extent, even Planet of the Apes, that was that new to you rebooted trilogy that was very good on its own accord. Even to a certain extent, Bad Boys, which was the what?
The collab earlier in the year.
Godzilla Kong, of course, yeah.
And even to a certain extent, Bad Boys, which was like, yes, it was very early 2020, but it was like right before the pandemic, yada. And that film, the one reason my Bad Boys 4 did so well is it was able to sell itself not as, it's a Bad Boys movie in the abstract, but it is a direct sequel to this Bad Boys for Life that you really liked 4 years ago.
Right.
And
looking at some franchises that have another movie coming out in September, Transformers 1 What is this going to be able to sell itself as? Because I don't think it
Have
could
you
sell
seen it?
itself. I haven't seen. I've seen the trailer several times. So this is basically
The
Teenage
first
Mutant Ninja
act-
Turtle Transformers.
To its credit, it's actually, I mean, again, you're not wrong in terms of what they're hoping for. But the first act, all the horrible stuff that made you want to bash yourself in the head in the first trailer, that's all in the first act.
Okay.
Once the plot kicks into motion, it's actually kind of great.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, it may be by default the best solo ever made in terms of a unrequested origin prequel starring a new actor, blah, blah, blah. Partially because it doesn't spend the entire time reminding you of another movie you'd rather be watching.
Okay. So do you think
Partially because it's just really good.
But do you think there's still juice left in that franchise? Because it's been a while since people have loved a Transformers movie. The last one made okay gross, but obviously wasn't a hit two years ago. So is this an example of this is dead IP for kids who don't care anymore?
I mean, that's always the fear, but again, if it opens like Ninja Turtles, because it only cost around $70 million. Because again, if Old Respect, Furiosa, Solo, and Lightyear had cost $70 million, we would have had very different conversations about their performance. I think if it opens, it will lag because it's so much better than that I think most of us were expecting. Again, I don't want to, it's not the Dark Knight or anything, but I was very surprised how much I was into it, how much it justified its artistic existence, which, for me, especially very uphill climb. And I think offhand, it's tracking at like 35 to 45 opening weekend, which I think would be terrific for that because, again, I expect it to leg out because it's good. If it opens, it will play.
Right.
And I mean, I think Speak No Evil will make $100 million in opening weekend because everyone knows that if it doesn't, they'll never ever stop playing that trailer for as long as we live.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I mean, do their part.
Absolutely. That it's funny that you said that because we have talked about how that has become a meme that everybody has seen this trailer. But we got a personal text from a wannabe oh boy who said he was getting information from certain people that were saying, why is this not being promoted? So how are we in such a gulf
was one tweet
of information?
That was very much done as a joke.
Okay.
It was Richard Newby. I don't know if he still works for the Hollywood Reporter, but I mean, he's a freelancer. He's a very, very, he's a terrific cultural critic, yada, yada, yada. But he said that as a joke, like finally some promotion. And like it went viral and like as expected, because it's Twitter, like 99% of the replies took him seriously and challenged him on this.
So what do you think about the chances for that movie? Because obviously it's almost Halloween. It's almost October, but not quite. It's mid-September. It's a horror movie. It's a remake of a pretty gnarly international movie, but you've got McAvoy, who did have Split. He had a horror hit. At this point, that's what, 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
It's
a long time ago.
Long time ago.
Is this a movie that could capitalize on being almost October? Mid-September, are people going to be in the mode to want to see a horror movie? And could this open to high teens?
It's also the first mainstream horror movie outside of the, art house stuff. I mean, obviously Longlegs played like a mainstream breakout, but I digress. If outside of the Neon 824 house, this is the first mainstream horror movie since, I guess Trap. Although,
Trap. Yeah,
again, I like Trap.
Not a horror.
I mean, it's certainly the most wholesome movie I've ever seen about serial killers, but I digress.
Yes.
And that's not necessarily, it's kind of a criticism I wanted, but anyway. But yeah, I think it benefits from being the first big horror movie of the season. I can't imagine it's particularly expensive. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the original, but it's not like they fly to the moon.
In this one they might.
Single location thing. Oh yeah,
this looks like they divert pretty much from the original. So we could see a space station in this. I'm not putting it past these.
There's time travel involved. But I'm expecting something like the remake of The Vanishing, where it ends the same way the original does, but then the army comes in and dragons show up, and then everything is made right again.
Yeah. I think you probably did nail that. I do think you probably nailed that the ending of the original movie happens 20 minutes before this movie actually ends.
That would be my guess. And whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that's if the two movies can exist side by side, all the better.
Yeah. So when you look at what we've just talked about for September, this could be just a huge September. You've got Beetlejuice is going to be a giant summer movie opening in September. Transformers 1, if you're saying it could open around 30, and then anything that Speaking of Evil does, if that opens to 10, I mean, we've had years since COVID where the biggest movie of September is what? Don't Worry, Darling, opening to 21 million. So this is going to be, the biggest post-pandemic September, I would think, that we've had.
More movies, more money. It's just that simple.
Yeah. So,
I mean, we've always had, it's even 2022 where everything was going, even with a lighter slate, everything, all the tentpoles that were supposed to do well did well. And of course, obviously Top Gun overperformed, basically played like 2 tentpoles in one. But then from like Bullet Train to maybe Woman King in early September, but Don't Worry, Darling and Black Adam in mid-October, there was nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
And it's and when you have that's again, it is consistently without fail been a supply problem, not a demand problem. And this was the first August since 2019, if not 2018 by default, that I would argue was very healthy.
Where are you on this Wild Robot that opens on September 27th? Is that a potential breakout?
Universal is bullish as hell, or at least they're creating a narrative that they're bullish as hell. It is already screened. I am going to try to see it on Sunday. It's in line with the Toronto premiere. I had to pass on the first couple screenings because of whatever. I'm very much looking forward to it because I've been saying since, and I'm sure many other people have been saying, for a while, that DreamWorks needs to make more movies like How to Train Your Dragon and Abominable and Prince of Egypt, and not just, Boss Baby. And Boss Baby is great, the first one especially. There is a place for these zany, wacky, I think I licked too many toads kind of comedies that are based on picture books that nobody, based on, cult level popular storybooks, as is the Wild Robot for that matter. Shrek is based on a book. Most people don't know that. There also needs to be, especially now that Comcast owns them and Illumination. Illumination generally does comparably grounded, real world, with obviously some fantasy elements, real world midlife crisis melodramas. And that's done very well for them. Despicable Me, Migration, Sing, The Grinch. I mean, what is The Grinch if not a midlife crisis movie? But there needs to, if they're going to also have DreamWorks, then they need to have a place for, a movie that's as hard, forgive me, as, Kung Fu Panda 2. That isn't just as goofy and who gives a shit as Kung Fu Panda 4. And I loved Abominable. I was devastated when it bombed in late 2019. They are obviously hoping that this does not bomb. They are putting a lot of chips and a lot of equity on the table for it in terms of, we want DreamWorks to be seen as more than just the other studio alongside Illumination. And if it opens well and gets good reviews, they are going to be putting I imagine, they're going to be putting a lot of money in the Oscar campaign, because it's been I don't think they've won an Oscar for Best Animated Film since Wallace and Gromit, which I would argue most people don't consider a DreamWorks film. And before that, it was Shrek, and that was the first year that they had Best Animated Film. And since then, they have consistently gotten their asses kicked, even in years like 2014, where it was insane that How to Train Your Dragon 2 did not win.
Yes.
Huge upset.
But whatever.
Yeah. So, I mean, if that opens, and this is a potentially big kids movie, I mean, September is almost like a summer month right now.
Well, the goal was that they'd all be summer months. We started seeing this right around the end of the 2010s. We started seeing what was basically year-round tentpole scheduling. But what happened is that, all due respect, Black Panther happened, which opened in mid-February and was so big that it basically steamrolled 6 weeks worth of other tentpoles. So as you saw in 2019, they were like, okay, we need to space these out a little bit just in case. And that's fine. That was a good, smart, valid strategy. But in early 2019, what we saw was like when something like Glass only did okay and the Lego movie outright tanked, then you had the entire industry waiting for Captain Marvel in March.
Right. So again, more product, put them out all year, and
more movies that don't cost so much money and they have to be the all-consuming tentpole to make money.
Right.
Yes.
Because again, I'm assuming if Transformers only cost $80 million, and if Wild Robot only cost $80 million, and if Terrifier only cost $2 million. Again, these films can all coexist because even if they nip at each other's heels a little bit, that's okay. What we can't have is a situation like we saw this in, July to August of 2016, where you had Megabucks Ghostbusters opens, then gets its ass kicked by Megabucks Star Trek, which then gets its ass kicked by Megabucks Bourne, and then gets its ass kicked by Megabucks Suicide Squad. And because all of those films needed to have best case scenario grosses to be, except for Bourne, profitable, that was a problem, especially for the first two. But if you have tent poles that are just as likely to cost 90 as 160, then you can have more movies that coexist of all kinds in the marketplace.
And is Beetlejuice in that range? Is Beetlejuice?
I'm guessing Beetlejuice cost $150 million. Okay. Just because, again, I don't know for sure, but Warner Brothers, they don't make cheap tent poles. And to be fair, they don't look like cheap tent poles. When people talk about, why do tent poles look so bad now, blah, 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 blah. They're not talking about Dune. They're not talking about Godzilla X Kong. They're not talking about, Wonka even that was like 120, which was, obviously very profitable for them. And, Beetlejuice, even Space Jam. I think it was nuts they spent 150, but the money's on the screen.
Right. You get the Clockwork Orange characters in the background.
Yeah, exactly. That's not cheap.
Yeah.
No.
So, so Scott, just one last thing looking ahead, because we'll be on our live show. We'll be talking about the results of the opening weekend of Joker Folly You Do. So I just want to get a long range prediction. What do you feel in that opening weekend number is now? That way we could get you on the record and then in front of the crowd.
Wait, hold on. I think my stuff's breaking up again. Hold on. I might be losing you. Hold on.
Oh, here we go.
There we go.
Love that.
Well, the reviews are apparently pretty terrible. And not most critics liked Joker last year. Yeah, the discourse was insane because you had the media basically spending an entire month trying to will a mass shooting into being so they could say, told you so.
Right.
But nuts and bolts critics thought it was varying degrees of this is fine. This time around, so far, and again, it's only people that were in Venice. So far, the reviews I'm reading are not good. That not only is it not good, it's not particularly a thrill-a-minute, gee whiz, macabre musical fantasy that maybe some of us were open for.
Wow.
And so what I always feel is that bad reviews won't automatically kill a tentpole, but bad reviews will hurt a tentpole if they say that not only is this movie bad, but it doesn't give you the thing that you thought you were coming to see. And that's why, for example, the Transformers sequels all did fine, because even the worst reviews were like, it's a fucking Michael Bay Transformers movie for better or worse. Or like the Jurassic movies that, why do people keep showing up for them? It's like, because even the bands say this is IMAX friendly spectacle with fun characters and people get eaten by dinosaurs.
Right.
But again, if the Joker reviews are both, this isn't as good as the first one, this is not a good movie, and again, I'm paraphrasing a few reviews I've read, it's more of a boring courtroom drama than anything else, you're gonna lose some people that might have been on the fence, and you're gonna lose some people that might have been more willing to race on an opening weekend, but now we're gonna wait and see.
Wow.
Gosh, that makes me more sad for our resurgence of courtroom dramas than anything, because if Joker 2 somehow screws us over so we don't get to see Sydney Sweeney in a power suit, I'm going to be very mad at this movie.
Yeah.
Not that I'm
Yeah.
endorsing, but that's what generative AI is for.
You're right. What? Like, can you spell that?
No, but
So
Just send me a link.
Clint Eastwood's juror number 2.
Oh,
Eastwood
that
could bring
actually
it back.
that's going to be that has such a great plot. That seems
It's
like it's going to be
Eastwood, so
amazing.
it might already be done. It might be opening next week. Who the fuck knows?
Oh yeah.
Everyone was done in time for an early dinner. 4:00 at the diner. Everyone was there.
And jokes aside, good for him on that. Him and Tyler Perry were like, yeah, we get this shit done fast.
Yeah. Listen, they got lives. They got TV shows that they recorded.
I remember, if you listen to the behind the scenes material of Everybody Loves Raymond, they had a very strict schedule, which is as close to 9 to 5 as they could. Because look, this is a family sitcom. You're writing about your family partially. If you don't spend any time with your loved ones, you're not going to have material for the show.
Yes. So that is the
Peter
one.
Boyle had his 5 p.m. doobie he had to smoke.
Exactly.
So much going on, Scott. Thank you so much for being on today. Is there anything else in the next few weeks coming out that you want to just get our attention on, or do you feel like is there any big possible breakout looming, or we've kind of covered those are the September ones that could do some business?
Yeah, I mean, what comes out in the end of September? Oh, that's Wild Robot. Yeah.
So I mean, it's pretty much, and of course,
pretty much covered September.
The one movie we didn't touch on, one of our guests who you'll be on stage with in the live show, Jeff Bock, he called it Megalopolis, Francis Ford Coppola.
Well,
where are you at on that?
Illusions. Lionsgate, again, I don't have their spreadsheets in front of me, but I know for a fact they did not procure the distribution with the intent of making a fortune in theatrical.
Okay.
They have a long history of distributing Coppola movies in post-theatrical, both new and old. And it makes them look good in terms of, it reminds you that they're the studio that puts out Saw, but also the studio that puts out La La Land. And that's why that trailer snafu made me so mad, because, you lost the moral high ground that was the whole point of picking this film up. But I digress. No, if it gets anywhere 10 million opening, it'll be a miracle. 5 wouldn't shock me.
Okay.
Because the reviews are not that good. And, Adam Driver, has a long storied history of starring in long gestating passion projects from, legendary auteurs that basically come and go with barely a whisper. And good for him, because that's not a bad way, that's not a bad kind of typecasting. But yeah, Megalopolis will make, I've actually seen it. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say about it, but The Killer's Game is a lot of fun.
Okay. That's the Dave Bautista.
Again, in a sane world, that would be a middle of the road line drive programmer. But today, who the hell knows? But I'm sure Lionsgate got into it with their eyes wide open. They know it's a fun film that plays to their, action grindhouse sensibilities, that will do well on PVOD, and everyone will go home happy. It's directed by J.J. Perry. Novel concept. Let's let action directors make action movies. Who'd have thunk it? And October, you've got Joker, obviously, and allegedly Whitebird. We'll see if it gets delayed again. And then Terrifier 3, and yeah, you're right, the weekend after The Thing, which that one I'm curious about, because when you say breakout sequel, it could do 15 million total, or it could open to $10 million. It could go either way.
We're going to get into that in a big way on the live show, but I mean, I think me and Clayton are really thinking that's going to be a breakout. That is going to be there is an underground movement for Art the Clown that I think we're going to find out about in October.
The second one was good, and Lauren Lavera's character is, relatively speaking, a marquee character, final girl protagonist of her own accord. And to their credit, they're selling that as much as her movie as is his.
Yes.
I think if they can balance the lore with the gore in this one, they could have a huge breakout. And I think this is one of the only franchises that can be sort of measured by vomit, in the sense of, if people are starting to see this movie and we're getting more vomiters than the second one, then that goes up a mil each time.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking that is something that we could really start measuring, is when people are vomiting.
I am so far 0 for 2 in terms of vomiting during a Terrifier movie. So bring it on.
Yeah, you're an old pro, but we've got these young kids who all they do is watch stuff on their phones, and they finally go see a Terrifier movie in the big screen. Yeah, they're yakking it up. So, very last thing, because we didn't get around to, I don't think we have to do top 5 ranking. It's all these old movies, but let's give our Beetlejuice opening weekend number predictions. So Scott, where are you at? Give us one number. There's ranges, but we want to hear the Scott Mendelson as of today prediction for this 3-day opening weekend of Beetlejuice.
Fuck it, I'm gonna go 140.
Wow,
I love it.
With the caveat that 80 will be fine.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And the reason I'm going so high is because publicity-wise and awareness-wise, we're playing at Barbie levels. I don't think it's going to be as big as Barbie, because you're not going to have the pop culture moment, but you're also going to have at least a few boys and men that might have been more reluctant to show up for Barbie that are going to show up for Beetlejuice. And there's going to be plenty of women that otherwise on its face might not care about Beetlejuice, but that is a property that has done just as well with women as with men over the years.
Wow. I mean, I'll say
80 would be fine.
Yes. Oh, the first movie made $75 million in its whole run.
Yes,
obviously different budget, different ball game, 40 years later or whatever. But I totally agree. And, other than people like me and Scott Mendelson, 6 months to a year ago, no one was even predicting anything close to this kind of opening weekend for Beetlejuice. People were like, if this opens to 40 or 50, that would be gigantic. So I'm going to not be influenced by what Scott just said. I say 125. That would have been my prediction before Scott said what he said. So I can't change it. So 125 is where I'm at for this opening weekend.
You're doing the triple Ghostbusters.
I'm being hyped. Yeah. 135 is triple Ghostbusters.
135 is triple Ghostbusters. Okay.
Yeah, 135 would be triple Ghostbusters.
And I'm being a little hyperbolic because I was undershooting it all summer long.
Yeah. So that's great. Clayton, where are you
be like Sean Connery, who turned down The Matrix, turned down Lord of the Rings, and said yes to the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
So let's have Clayton give his prediction. Now, Scott, I don't know if you're aware of this. Clayton does have a storied history with the first Beetlejuice movie. Clayton, I don't know if you could just tell it quickly, just so to catch Scott up so that he understands your prediction. You saw this first Beetlejuice in the theaters, correct? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, I did see this in the theaters. My babysitter took me. I was in love with my babysitter. I went to this movie trying to be brave for her. I was 8 years old. The sandworm showed up. I got too scared. I said, we have to leave. She got angry because she had paid for the tickets. And the look of disdain in her eyes has stuck with me forever. And it's really impacted my relationship with women ever since. That is the Cliff Notes version. So that, though, is personal. And box office.
Can I just say this with all due respect?
Of course you can.
Fucking loser.
Yeah, exactly.
You hold it in, man. You take it. Mm-hmm. As someone that also had a crush on a pre-adolescent crush on a babysitter, you blew it, man. You blew it.
Yeah.
They just don't give you enough napkins at this place. I think that Scott, I thought the worst thing that could happen to me when it came to Beetlejuice was that. And now
I can't think of anything worse.
Scott Mendelson telling me that I'm a wimp might compound.
So you were then. I'm sure you're awesome now.
No, I'm the same person. I've never changed.
Oh,
and that's
then I
the
can't help
problem.
you.
That's the problem. So here's the thing. All that aside, it's not personal. It's box office. I was around the 125 with you, Pat, because why not go nuts? Let's get nuts. Okay. 165. Why not? Why not?
Oh
I know
my
it's
God.
insane, but
Barbie.
why not say it? Why not say it?
Oh my
I actually have a
God.
similar story to you. When I was 6 years old, there was a babysitter / preschool teacher that I was totally into, and she offered to take me to the movies, but she wanted to see 101 Dalmatians.
Okay.
I was reluctant because of that movie. I thought that was a lame. I'm not a dog person. I like cats anyway, but I thought it was a lame, stupid movie for babies. But I wanted to get laid. I was 6 years old at the time, metaphorically speaking. So, also being pathetic, I sold out and pretended that I wanted to see 101 Dalmatians and suffered through it. And this might shock you, but I didn't even get to first base.
Oh man. Yeah.
So is there a better example of the difference between two men where Clayton couldn't sit through this children's movie and because of that chased off a woman, whereas Scott Mendelson, this true man, went to go see a movie that the only thing against the movie was it was not tough enough for him, and he still grinned and bared it in the pursuit of, let's just say it, of tail.
The flesh.
Yeah. And my God.
But we both lost.
Yeah, but there's loss, and then there's like a there's sort of I didn't even take the swing. I went up to the plate and I said, "Oh, that ball is going too fast."
Yeah, you
and
dropped the bat on your foot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, "Owie, owie, my little toe."
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say it takes great courage to tell that story.
How much courage does it take to tell that story 8 times on the same podcast?
Yeah, I have him tell it. I have him tell it quite often because
I do periodically listen.
Yeah.
So I'm shocked that I haven't. Okay.
Yeah, that is shocking. You missed it.
I've been having him tell it quite a bit in the run up to this movie, and we, of course, you got to listen to the next episode when we recap the results of Beetlejuice opening weekend, because I will have Clayton tell that story again. So it's a huge tease for the next episode.
I may have a new story because we're seeing Beetlejuice in the theater on Friday.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah. So he does have a chance at redemption. So that's
usually would be none of my business, but are you going with a lady friend or male friend? I don't know you that well.
It's a BO Boys outing. We are going on Friday to see this. So yeah, I'll get to be the one who witnesses if Clayton has to run out of the theater screaming. He'll have to do it to me.
How old were you when you saw Beetlejuice?
I was 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Scott, do you want to see
the one part that almost got me in the first Beetlejuice? I liked the movie overall, but the one scene that actually did scare me was when they opened the closet and she's got the severed head and the knife.
Yeah. I didn't even get that far.
Really? Fair enough.
Yeah, I ran away. I ran away from the fake mythical creatures that look like claymation.
So you left before Beetlejuice showed up.
No, I never saw Beetlejuice.
That's what I'm saying. You never saw Beetlejuice in the
No. I didn't see the whole movie, and I didn't even see the character until way, way later. And Scott, if you want to see the look of disdain in someone's eyes when somebody gets too scared to see a movie, just look at how Pat looks at me all the time on this show, and you'll see that look of disdain. Yeah.
It's transferred from the babysitter to me, and that has defined this show and our friendship. So, but a chance of redemption on Friday. So Scott, I'll let you know how that goes. As soon as we got the screening, I'll let you know if Clayton is still with me or if he had left an hour before.
Just warning, if you see it in Dolby or IMAX, those Minecraft images might be a little intense. So make sure you sit far back from the front of the screen.
Wow. We're seeing it in Dolby. So there's a chance Clayton leaves this screening before Beetlejuice even starts.
Because I'm scared of a block-headed sheep in the Minecraft
Aren't we all?
Trailer. Yeah.
To be fair, if I encountered one in the wild, I'd probably be pretty terrified too.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Unless, of course, you were trying to impress a woman, in which case Scott Mendelson would grit his teeth and he would deal with that.
Yes, I would still be scared, but isn't that what courage is?
Exactly. So, Scott, where can our listeners, and of course, listen, anyone who listens to us is here because of Scott Mendelson, but just
Mm-hmm.
where else can our listeners find your work, your musings, your reporting?
I do a Buck News column semi-weekly in their Monday night When I'm Hearing newsletter, but my main base of operations is at the Outside Scoop at Substack. I publish more or less daily, and I also do a podcast once a week. It drops anytime from between Monday morning and Wednesday afternoon, depending on our schedules.
Mhm.
Basically, it's me and 3 other box office pundits that I just grew up reading over the years. And when I decided to do a podcast, I thought, I don't want it just to be me bloviating for 45 minutes. There's lots of places you can get that. So it's me, Lisa Lehman, Ryan Scott, and Jeremy Fooster. And that's just Google The Outside Scoop, the Box Office Podcast. It should be available wherever podcasts are found, except for YouTube. We're still working on that. And that's about it.
Great. And of course, follow us on social media at the BO Boys Pod on Twitter X and on TikTok. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. New Substack article on the BO Boys Substack going out probably tomorrow morning. I'm going to have an article on the Oscar chances for both Beetlejuice and the Reagan movie. We're going to see, can Kevin Dillon get into the supporting actor conversation? That's going to be a huge article.
That's going to be a short article.
You know, when you really dig into it, is the whole, will he have the Johnny Drama redemption story from Entourage the movie?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you gotta see, do voters want to see that play out in real life? So the BO Boys Substack, new article dropping any minute now. And of course, the live show, tickets in the show notes. The big one is LA on October 8th. Scott Mendelson, Jeff Bock, Nick Turner. We're going to be talking all of those movies. Joker 2, Saturday Night. That's the other one I forgot about coming out that weekend. Saturday Night and the Trump movie. And
you mentioned Saturday Night.
I did mention. Okay.
Another movie that I think it looks good. I'm looking forward to seeing it. That could be another one that sells like 6,000 tickets or 6,000, one ticket for every like 6,000 blog posts and social media grants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is definitely a niche audience that plays to, but we'll see. So yeah, live show October 8th. Buy your tickets now. And Clayton, I think that's it. I don't think there's anything, right?
Pat, you've said it all.
Yeah.
There's nothing left to be said.
No. All right. Well, I'm out of here then.
Except for until next time.
We'll smell you at the bar.